Hello and welcome to the video instructions of Alive and Kicking. You can find a link to the free download of the PDF tutorial for this project. There you can also find the exact amounts of beads that you need, like the grams and everything. It's written in there. So here is only a short description of the supply list. So I have two versions of 3mm beads. I have hex cut bead size 8 from Toho. You could also take Delica beads in the size 8. And then I have size 11 seed beads. And as I mentioned, two different versions of 3mm beads. Here I have the same bracelet with round beads and fire polished beads. I'm going to demo the piece with the round beads and the bicones here in this version. As you can see in the instructions, I have three versions of a bangle in one kit. The thread that I used was my Yuki beading thread. You can also take 1G, fire line, everything works. And I'm using a size 11 beading needle. And we start with the hex cuts only. We make a peyote strip with 3 units wide. There's an additional video about peyote technique if you're not familiar with it. So here just a quick demo. We string 3 beads to start with, then I'm turning around, I string 1 bead, pass through the middle bead and the next bead, so the following 2 beads here. Then I string 1 bead, and skip the first one, pass through the middle bead and the bead left of the last bead here on the bottom edge. Sorry, I had to make a little skip because there was a big thread mistake before. Anyway, or a thread accident. So again, I'm entering the first bead from the bottom, going up. Now I'm adding the bead in the center, and I'm passing through the last bead on the top edge. As I mentioned, there's a video about peyote technique and the basic techniques, so I'm not going too much into detail here about that technique. Now, I add a bead in the top position, going all the way down. Then I add my bead in the bottom position, skip the first one, going through the next 2 beads here, and it's always in this X shape that we're weaving through the beads. Then I enter the first bead here and add the bead in the middle. So it's top position, bottom position, middle position. And that's all the time what you do. First the edges, then the center. Now, you see, I didn't cut my thread off the spool. The spool is still attached to the thread, so I can just keep going with my working thread until that is done, and then I can keep working with the other end. Now I continue here, and once my strip is long enough, and you see, I was really using all the wonky little hex cuts. They are like this. That makes the organic look of the piece. So the only ones that I sorted out was this very shorty one and the very long one. And otherwise, I used all the wonky ones here. Now we have to close our bangle to a ring. And I'm just zigzagging along the beads of the 2 edges here to do so. Just make sure that nothing is twisted. You see, exiting here from my last row in the bottom position, then I'm going through the other end, through the bead on the other end, back on my actual row, the bead on the other end again. So you're just zigzagging between the 2 rows, and then you can reinforce this attachment row another time. I'm securing my working thread now because it's not that long anymore, and I'm going to continue with the other thread. And in case my other thread at the end is a little bit too short, then I can still work with that tail end. And if I don't need the tail end by securing it here right away, I can just cut it off later if I don't need it. So, but you see here, there's always plenty of space to add new thread in the hex cut. So if you don't like to have that spool on the other end, just cut it off. Okay, now the next part is adding the picots, and you see here string 3 11s exiting from the edge, string 3 11s weave back into the next hex cut and or the adjacent hex cut, go over to the other side, and I repeat the same here. The important thing is when you add those picots that they are in opposite positions, that they are not off center. So they always have to be in the opposite position. And that's why I'm weaving over to the other side again, then exiting from the bead next to my first picot. And here I add the next picot, and then I go diagonally to the other side again to exit next to that previous picot here. And in this way, by going diagonally, as I'm showing you here, you just add one picot on the one edge, then on the other edge. I'm not passing through the beads on one side. I always go to the other side because this is in addition strengthening the thread in the bangle itself, in the base of the bangle. So all these passes that you're doing here, they have a purpose. Now, you repeat this all the way to the end of the round. Just make sure that the picots, that you don't skip a position. The count of the units, I didn't mention that before, the count of the units in the base has to be divisible by 4. So your the number of hex cuts on one edge has to be divisible by 4, at least by 2, so you can add your picots. But if it's divisible by 4, you can also alternate your 3mm beads, and that's what I'm showing you now. You see, I'm exiting from the last bead of one picot, and then I string 2 11s. It's right before the hex cut. So I string 2 11s, one 3mm bead, that's a round bead here, 2 11s, and then I'm passing through the beads of the next picot on the other side. So not on the picot in the opposite position, through the picot in the opposite position, but the picot next to it. Again, now string 2 11s, one bicone, 2 11s, and then we go at the pass at the bottom edge through the next picot. So this is the third picot in the row. I was skipping the picot number 2. Now on the top again we string 2 11s, round bead, 2 11s, and again I skip one picot at the top and weave through the next one. So we're just weaving through every second picot. And because of this, you will see that your beads are not, the beads in the center, they go a little bit like in a zigzag line. You will see that even better when we come to the end of the round. Don't pull them too tight, just normal thread tension here, because we will reinforce this round and that your bracelet is not shrinking too much. When you're pulling too tight, your bracelet will shrink a little bit. On the other hand, it's then more elastic. Now, we just keep going up to the end of the round, and here you can see the zigzag situation a little bit better. That's my last group of beads that I'm adding, and I'm passing back through the beads of the very first picot where I started from. And you see here, every second picot is just abandoned and was not used. So what we're doing now is just we exit from the first group of beads that I was adding at the top here, and now we're not going to the right as before, we're going to the left, and we're zigzagging along the picots and the middle beads, but this time we're just catching every picot that was skipped in the first place, and in this way your groups will line up straight, and then you have the connection to the previously abandoned picots done. You do this up to the end of the row. So just keep going until everything is straightened out, and then you can secure your thread and cut it off. If your thread is too short to go all the way around, it's usually no problem to add any thread, but you have to be sure or make sure, of course, that you're getting back into the right track. But it's easy to see which picots are not joined here and which ones are joined, so that's not a biggie to find the right position to continue. Now, I made sets of 3 bangles for my kids, and for these sets, I was just alternating the 3 millimeter beads. And I was also alternating the color of my size 11 beads. And so this is the bangle that we just did. You see, I combined the round beads and the bicones here. And then I have the other two versions, one with bicones and fire polished, and one with fire polished and round beads. And of course, the different colors for the seed beads here, for the size 11 seed beads. I hope you enjoyed this little project. It's a nice bangle. It's very easy to wear. And yeah, I hope you like it and see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.